By the age of 20 years old, I had successfully built a six-figure business from a twin-sized bed in my college dorm. Right now, I'm 22 years old and my businesses have more than doubled in revenue and profit every year since I started them. Over the past few years, I've been lucky enough to travel across the world, meet interesting people that I look up to, and have unimaginable experiences, all while making money from my laptop. It's easy to look at my life now from the outside and assume that my life is perfect and that I have it all figured out. That couldn't be more wrong. Despite the success I've been able to have up until this point, I do not have it all figured out. Not even close. In fact, there are plenty of ways I could have been further ahead in my life right now had I learned these lessons sooner. That's why I feel it's important to share them with you.
Also, I know the trend is things I wish I knew in my 20s, but I'm not quite that old yet, so these are the things I wish I knew at 20 years old. The first thing is focusing on how you add value. When I was 19 years old, I got my first internship. I was so excited to learn and build my skill set as an entrepreneur that I got 2 internships that summer, both at startup companies. One day early on, our company had an event, and at this event, I got to meet this high-level executive who had worked at another company. He turned out to be a friend of the CEO, and I was telling this guy how I was so excited to be working at the company because how it would benefit me and my career in the long run, and all of the experiences and things I'd learned would help me become the entrepreneur I was planning on being. And as soon as I finished telling him all of this, he stopped and asked me how old I was. And then as soon as I told him, he immediately called me out. And he told me, instead of talking about what's in it for you, what you stand to gain from this opportunity, instead talk about how you can add value to the work that you're doing. Talking about my career goals and my ambition to be an entrepreneur, I thought it would boost my ego up and people would respect me more. But in fact, it did the opposite. When you focus on how you add value, people want to be around you more. You produce better work because you're focused on the thing you're trying to accomplish in the here and now. And this brings me to my second point. And that second point is that acceptance equals happiness. I recently heard a quote from Naval Ravikant that perfectly sums up my thoughts on happiness. And he says that happiness is when nothing is missing. And based on my experiences so far, this could not be more accurate. In my experience, when I'm totally accepting of the circumstances that I'm in, that I go so far as to embrace them, is when I truly feel at peace and content. In this sense, happiness is just another word for acceptance. When you accept the situation, you're no longer opposing reality. There's no friction. There's just an inexplicable flow. Things are easy. Allowing a negative feeling or situation to simply be, even for just a second, allows you to see it for what it truly is. When you simply see things for what they are and nothing more, is when you realize that you have more power than you think you have. And in my personal experience over the years, everything great comes from something bad. So anytime I find myself in a situation that's difficult and I'm finding hard to accept, I ask myself these questions. How is this current situation serving me? How could it be serving me? And is the energy I'm bringing to this situation making it better or worse? And I find that often the energy I bring to a situation, if I can't do anything about it right here and right now, worrying about it and feeding fuel to the fire only makes it worse. All this time that we spend wishing for another fate could be spent creating the fate we'd like. The faster you can accept what is, the faster you can make it work for you. All this time wasted wishing for another fate, you could be creating it. And speaking of reality and bringing energy to a situation, this brings me to my next point. Look for the opportunity, not the excuse. For so long, I had all of these goals and these ideas of things I wanted to do. And yet, when it was time to actually do the work, I was filled with excuses. This channel is one of them. I wanted to post videos on this channel for months before I ever picked up a camera and actually filmed something. I wanted to post on this channel before the year 2019 even started. And if you go back and look at the video history on this channel, you'll see that I didn't post until a few months into 2019. So not only did I fail miserably to achieve my goals, but I had all of these excuses of why I couldn't do it. Instead of looking for everything that could be gained by pursuing my goals or doing the things that I said I wanted to do, my mind's default setting was to look for the excuses, why now isn't a good time, why I should wait, why I should focus on something else in the meantime. And I find that this is a limiting belief or a limiting default setting that our brain goes to rationalize these situations that we're in. We find that we wanted to do all of these things, but we didn't do the work. And now we're stuck with this goal that maybe we told other people about, but that we did nothing to accomplish. So what do we do in these scenarios? Well, we rationalize, we make excuses as to why we didn't just do the fucking thing that we were supposed to do. And I found that when I made the switch to start looking for the opportunity and looking for what could be gained if I decided to do the things I said I wanted to do, I was way less prone to make excuses, and I was way more likely to get the things done that I wanted to be done. And this idea of taking into account the bigger picture really highlights a lesson that I had to learn the hard way. And that lesson is that the micro does not equal the macro. Being too zoomed in on the micro negativity and situations that are happening in the here and now lack the perspective of the macro. And had I just been able to understand that what's happening right now is temporary, this too shall pass, and that there's a bigger picture at play here, then I would have saved myself a whole lot of suffering and a whole lot of public embarrassing panic attacks. It's our inability to see the bigger picture and realize that there is so much more to life, and there's so much more life that is yet to be lived than this current shitty situation that I'm in. When you look at things over a long enough timeline, you start to realize that there are very few things that matter or have a significant impact on your life. Once you realize this is when you become truly free. You're no longer bogged down by the little day-to-day annoyances or blunders that happen in day-to-day life, and you can truly approach your life in a way that's free and relaxed. And speaking of feeling free and relaxed, there's nothing that's made me feel more free than unconditional self-love. As an overly ambitious, prestige-hungry 20-year-old, I used to bully myself into the hustle or the grind. I used to rely on negative self-talk to motivate myself to do the things that I needed to get done. I used to say things like, if you don't get up and do these emails, you're a bum, or if you don't get up and write these scripts or do this marketing, then you're a fucking loser. Do you want to be a loser? Do you want to be a winner? This really toxic hustle porn mentality that was the polar opposite of self-love. I was approaching my work from a toxic place. I was placing my internal value and my value as a human being based on how much work I was able to get done. And if it isn't obvious, anytime you place your value or your self-worth in something that is external, you are immediately giving up your control over it. Every thought, impulse, and feeling that we have is natural. So who are we to judge ourselves for it? It's our human nature. Whatever we're feeling or the thoughts that we're having, they're natural. You can't control how you feel. All you can do is control how you respond in the presence of these feelings. If you find yourself doing or feeling something that you don't like or you don't want, all you can do is acknowledge it, accept it, and then take contrary action in the direction that you'd like to be in. And speaking of unsustainable habits and systems in place, there is nothing more important in life, I'm convinced, than this next thing, which is to never compromise on your sleep. When I was a fully fresh newbie entrepreneur, I was totally wrapped up and caught up in the hustle porn that surrounds most entrepreneurship advice. I used to think it was some sort of badge of honor to only get 5 hours of sleep per night because I was too busy hustling and I didn't have time for sleep, and less time sleeping meant more time working. And looking back now as someone who is totally well rested almost all the time and almost never wakes up to an alarm clock, I realized just how shitty and ridiculous my life was during this point when I was getting 5 or 4 hours of sleep. I was significantly less effective and productive because my brain was foggy. I'd be fucking falling asleep at my desk. I was still in college at the time, so I'd be falling asleep in class. on the bus rides home. It was a total mess. I had no control over my mood swings or my emotions, and in fact, I went through one of the most depressive ruts in my life during this period. And I attribute this depressive spiral to my lack of sleep. I was depressed for months, and it's because for months I had a terrible sleep schedule. Sleep was a bargaining chip. If I needed to go do something, oh, I'll just wake up earlier and go do it. Or, oh, I'll just stay up later and play video games, or stay up later and work so I have more time to work on my businesses and get more done and be more productive. And when I finally made the change of simply fixing my sleep schedule, within 1 week, my depressive rut was almost completely gone. And it turns out that simply getting enough sleep was the force multiplier I needed to get myself out of this depressive episode and get my life back on track. It was a difference in night and day, no pun intended. It was like some sort of magic pill that I had took, and after this I was like, there is no way I will ever budget less than 8 hours of sleep per night. The science is abundantly clear that unless you are part of the 0.1% of people who have a genetic mutation that allows you to sleep less than 7 hours per night, you are infinitely more productive and effective if you have at least 7 hours of sleep per night. So I don't care how much you are down for the hustle, get your sleep. Your body and your mind and your productivity will thank you so much for it. And last but not least, this brings me to a lesson that I had to learn very, very recently, and I still struggle with to this day. A lesson that I'm embarrassed to admit, and that is to be honest always. If you want to be less stressed, less anxious, and overall more relaxed, then the easiest thing you can do is to simply tell the truth, because there is nothing more freeing and stress relieving than to just say what you truly believe. Not only did my relationships improve and my communication become so much more effective with the people around me, because when you're lying to other people, especially the people you care about, you're priming your brain to come up with alternate storylines and to be comfortable and okay with avoiding the truth and fabricating reality. And if your mind is in a place where it is constantly trained to fabricate reality and lie to other people, then it is very likely somewhere along the line you will be lying to yourself as well. And if you'd like more on this topic of lying, I highly recommend you check out Lying by Sam Harris. It's a very short book in which he describes all of the huge downsides of lying and all of the benefits that come with simply telling the truth. And the truth is now that this is the end of the video. If you guys like this video, make sure you like, you subscribe, and you turn on post notifications. I am posting every single week now, and you follow me on Instagram. I talk about all of these lessons that I've learned in my captions and my stories, and I also post about men's fashion and men's lifestyle. You guys are always asking me about my hair, about what clothes I'm wearing. You can find all of that information on my Instagram. And to quote one of the Stoics, I'll say, do not wish for a different fate. That is to live a false life. So although it took me a long time to learn these things, this is my fate. I'm gonna live it, and I refuse to live a false life. I'll see you guys very soon. Make sure you comment this type of stuff you wanna see from me. I'll talk to you guys in the comments and on Instagram. Peace.